fight for this, to fight for this country. So they knew what they came from, and they knew where they were at, and they knew what it was worth fighting for. And I thank the Lord for that this morning. I have Dad do the offering to Sunday school. There's Matthew, he didn't make it. But Sunday school, this stuff goes toward our Sunday school literature and all toward the Sunday school, all this offering that we take up for this. We're in the lesson book. We're on page 22. The depth of Saul's jealousy. I'm going to ask Brother Milda, before we do that, to open us up in prayer.
Heavenly Father, I want to thank you this opportunity in the house this morning that to be with my life to focus your word. And I thank you for this beautiful day. We ask you in the future to direct us in this day, Lord. First and foremost, we want to thank you for having your own God Son die on the cross for our sins. In Jesus' name we pray.
Thankful for all the ones that came out this morning. Good to see Brother Jack, Sister Peggy back there. It's been a while. They've been under this health issues and under the weather and all that, but Brother Jack has been someone I've always looked up to, and Sister Peggy, and through all the things in life that they've gone through, they've always kept their eyes on the Lord. And they've had their share of heartaches, but they've kept their eyes on the Lord. And I thought about that with our lesson with David. Everything David went through, he kept on fighting for the Lord. And that's why I keep going back, Sister Melissa. Is there not a cause? There is a cause. Heaven is worth it all.
That's right. Amen.
It's worth it all. Thankful to have them. It's good to see them here this morning. So we're in it's 1 Samuel chapter 22. I'm right there. Yep. Matthew's we've been hitting on this for a while. I think this whole quarter we've been in Samuel. Kind of get you caught up to where we're at in our lesson. We know that Saul was anointed by Samuel. If you go to Samuel chapter 8, Israel wanted a king. And it wasn't meant for him to have a king. There was only one king, him, God. That's what he wanted. And they kept saying, we want a king. We want a king. And so God gave him, it wasn't intended for him to have this king, but he gave them their heart's desire. If you go read chapter 8 in Samuel, he's telling them, you know what comes with the king? You're going to be servants to this king. And if you read that whole chapter, he's telling them all the things that comes along with being king, and you're going to disband. You're going to be under his rule. And to me, I'd rather be under God's rule any day than a man's rule.
That's right.
And he's trying to explain to them this: we'll give you a king, but then he goes on and he brings Saul across Samuel's path. God tells him to anoint Saul. Saul, I believe, he was, and if you go on, I think over in 9, and the difference of him and David was Saul said he stood above everybody else. He was somebody that you looked at and said, yep, that's the one we want for a king. And the difference of David, it goes on along, I think Saul, he loved Israel, but he got caught up in, like everybody else does, when you start throwing riches their way, and the fame of it all, and it being a name, he got caught up in that. He got caught up in doing things his way instead of God's way. I don't know that if he truly ever died out that is being the king for Israel, loving God for how he should. I think he loved Israel, but I don't know if he had a heart like David did. And I thought about that and said, how did God know when he had David anointed that Saul was gonna? I mean, how did God know, but why did he anoint David at a young age before Saul even started falling, getting more and more caught up in and getting away from God and what his Saul acknowledged God, but he would do things as not he wouldn't do things fully how God told him to do them. And he would only do things part way, not all the way. He was like, I think he would start thinking he knew better. And we do the same thing. God tells us to do something certain ways, and we get caught up and think, I got this figured out. We do things our own way, and we get. But one thing with David is, this is where we're getting up to. David, God had him anointed when he was younger, and he rose up, even actually under Saul, playing the harp for him as a young man. He went in and played music for Saul whenever he got in a bad way. He went in to soothe Saul's spirit with the harp playing, and I think he acknowledged Saul as the king. Let's put it that way, and he respected him. I think David loved Israel so much, and he loved his people so much. He realized that Saul was the king, and he was going to follow no matter what. And so as he rose up, he started fighting, and we learned that David was killing 10,000 and Saul to thousands. And it's like Matt said, he said he don't really think it was intended that the people was trying to it's just the way it was. They were acknowledging, they said, hey, he's a mighty man, and but when he went to fight Goliath, that's what I keep going back to. We all know that, and I said this a few weeks ago. The difference of David and the rest of them is they all was afraid, but David realized that he served the one and only God, and he was going to pull him through. And that's the difference of the rest of them. That's why I keep going back to David kept saying these are not a cause. Can't you see there's a cause here to fight for? We're serving the one and only God. There is a reason there's a reason to fight. And he went out having a faith in God that none of the rest of them had. And then after this, he just kept rising and rising up in Israel. And Saul kept getting further and further away. He kept, if you go to 1 Samuel, let's go over there, 1 Samuel 15. Here, Saul was told to go out in the battle, and he was told things to do. He was told pretty much to wipe everything out, everything that they went in to fight for in this battle. He was told to wipe them, and he didn't listen to God fully. And this has been like this has been going on for a while. But we always said obedience is better than sacrifice. We read that so many times. It said in 22, and Samuel said, hath the Lord as great delight in burnt offerings and sacrifices, as in obeying the voice of the Lord? Behold, to obey is better than sacrifice, and hearken then the fat of rams. For rebellion is as a sin of witchcraft. Stubbornness is as iniquity and adultery, because thou hast rejected the word of the Lord. He has also rejected thee from being the king. This is where it was over. He pretty much said, this is it. You've gone too far, Saul. But he had a king. I guess what I was trying to say earlier, God had someone else ready way before this to fill in. So I think God knows, he knows the heart of man. That's what it boils down to. Did Saul have a chance? Yes, he did. But God knows the heart of man, and he had someone lined up way before this. But Saul kept rebellion and rebellion. But that right there, and it still goes to today. It says, it's compared, it says rebellion is as a sin of witchcraft. That's how serious it is. How rebellion and not listening to the Lord is and it says stubbornness is as iniquity of adultery. It's serving other gods. Because thou hast rejected the word of the Lord. He hath rejected thee from being king. And it broke Samuel's heart. It really did. Samuel, he said he stayed up nights crying over Saul. He hated this. We should not take joy in seeing someone else fall. shouldn't. And David didn't either. David didn't want to give up on Saul. He could have killed Saul. He had many chances to kill Saul. But he didn't. He was the leader of Israel. Even Saul, up to this point, before David was coming up to this point, Saul was trying to set him up to fail. He thought, well, you know what? I have a daughter to bring him down. How bad Saul got. And then he went on and he sent him out to battle thinking he was going to be killed, get him killed. And then he demoted him, and everything that happened, David, his attitude never changed. I thought, can I do that? When we've been done wrong at work, you come under attack and you've been demoted and whatever goes on, could we do the same thing and still keep a good attitude? I don't know. That'd be tough. I've been done wrong at work, and I think many of us probably gone through that, and it's hard to bite your tongue. People come in that shouldn't be above you, and they put them above you, and it's really hard to keep that good attitude. It's like, oh, you know what? The Lord's going to be there. He's going to get me through this, and He will. But at that time, and Chad talked about this here just a couple of years ago, and he brought you through it. But during that time, you're thinking you're under attack, and it's hard to keep. But David, that whole time, I think he loved his country so much. Now, no matter where he was at, he was going to make the best of it. But now it's getting so bad that Saul, and I thought about that. That's how we got to be careful that bitterness, and it compares it to witchcraft here. That it can build up in us, Brother Bruce, to get hate in our heart for other people. And it just starts a little bit at a time. I think Saul really started out good. He had a good, but then it just over time, the power, and he got within himself. And then he thought he was more than what he should have been. And then he goes up, and then David starts to rise up, and then he sees this. He sees this coming up, and then that jealousy starts in. And then he goes after David. Now it's getting really bad, and that's where we're at in chapter 22 here. Is there a good jealousy? You want to look up for me 2 Corinthians 11:2. And then we'll look up, and I want someone to look up that for me, 2 Corinthians 11, verse 2. Chad, you got it? I got it. And then, Jane, I want you to think about that. Is there a righteous jealousy?
Yeah.
What do you think about that? And then James 3:16. Someone look that up for me. We got Chad. Brother Gary. James 3:16. And then Sister Tammy, I want you, if you will, you got your book. Read the introduction for us.
Sure. Just give me 1 second.
This jealousy, you think many times back, you think of Cain and Abel. You think of that. Cain sued his brother Abel because of jealousy. And you know why? I think people think, well, that don't sound fair. If you go back and read about that, and Abel brought his sacrifice, offered it up to God, and then Cain brought his, and so his was from the field, and Abel's was from the flock that he had. Why did God accept Abel's but not Cain's? It's because Cain gave everything he had. He gave the best that he had. Or Abel did. Cain gave, it wasn't, he gave just what, he didn't give everything. He didn't give the best.
Just like Saul.
It's like Saul. Saul was following part way. He was only given half. And if you go to Joseph, see the jealousy there. And same thing, his brothers ready to kill him. And they were going to kill him, and the one said, no, let's just put him in a pit and make the story up. Jealousy all the way through. But it was because Abel had a heart for God. Joseph had a heart for God. David's got a heart for God. It's because they were not given everything they had. They weren't given the best that they had. Sister.
That, I wouldn't call that righteous jealousy.
No, that's not righteous jealousy.
No.
There is a difference.
Yeah, but when you mentioned, is there such a thing as righteous jealousy?
Yeah.
Only God has that.
Exactly. That's what we're going to get to. Now, when I just want you guys to think about that. Is there a righteous jealousy? And what's the difference? We're going to get to that, but where we know where Saul is at, it's not. It was about him. It was all about him. And so we'll get to that after Sister Tammy reads the introduction.
The already bad situation between Saul and David just got worse. Saul made yet another attempt to kill David not long after David's marriage to Michal. David escaped with Michal's help, seeking refuge with Samuel. With this latest attempt on his life, it was apparent that action must be taken. Should David tarry much longer, it would only be a matter of time before Saul hit his elusive target. David must flee for his life. David's final determination not to return was made with the help of loyal Jonathan. When David heard Jonathan tell his servant that the arrow was beyond him, which was a predetermined signal, he knew that the point of no return had finally been crossed. David realized he could never trust King Saul again.
Can you imagine? I thought about trying to look at Saul's side of it. He wasn't where he should be with the Lord. But then the jealousy became so bad that then his own son chose David. I think Jonathan loved his dad. We see that later on. He loved his dad, but he knew that his dad wasn't where he should be. And he knew that David had a heart for God. So not only this, it's his son that, like Matt said last week, who would have received, but next in line after Saul, he was willing to give David the position of being king. And so that had to just eat at Saul. And then when he gives his daughter to try to set David up, she ends up falling in love with David and protecting him. She makes a way to escape for him so he can get away from Saul. So all this is just getting more and more. And now Saul is he's gone. He did the worst of all things you could do. He starts attacking the men of God. And that's what we're at in 22 here. So David, therefore, we're going to start with 1. Your book starts at 7. And our illustration, the lesson of objectives, is to see a tragic illustration of where jealousy can lead, to follow God's leadership, especially in difficult times, to do what we can to protect the innocent. And that's basically everything that we'll learn here that goes along with our lesson. So David, in chapter 22, said, David therefore departed thence and escaped to the cave Adullam. And when his brother and his father's house heard it, they went down thither to him. And every one that was in distress, and every one that was in debt, and every one that was in discontented gathered themselves unto him, and he became a captain over them, and there were with him about 400 men. Why did his family and these people go with David? I got thinking about it. Why did they just didn't stick with Saul? How come they went with David? I think they realized they were marked. They were marked as some of David's people. And they knew their only chance was to go down and be with David. Anybody have it? I just really think that's there. They probably loved David. I think they knew that they were in danger. There's a lot of people here. I don't know if you know. I worked with a guy that after the Vietnam War, the South Koreans that helped America, they fleeted over here because they were marked.
Yeah.
They were being treated like dogs. Some of them killed after the war because they helped the United States. And there's a guy I worked with. His family came over, and he was just a little boy. But he said his whole family, from his grandfather helped the United States, and after that, the whole family was marked.
They did that in Vietnam. They did that in Korea.
Yep.
And they did it in Afghanistan.
They just did it this year in Afghanistan. Some of you know, but we had soldiers who were retired soldiers, Marines and SEALs, that were going back over into Afghanistan just still doing it, getting these people out, doing it on their own.
Yeah.
And they're going over there and getting these people out because they're marked, because they helped us.
But I always thought David, people that came into it knew that he was going to be king.
Yep.
his whole family knew that he was gonna be king, so when this happened, they sort of went David's way.
Yeah. It says, someone says, and everyone that was in distress, and everyone that was in debt, and everyone that was discontented. So just, I think maybe just a little bit of all that. They knew they were discontented with Saul's leadership, but they said they were in debt. Different things here that's going on. So there was probably a mixture of these people that went down there, and David basically had enough there for a pretty decent sized army. And that's what he ended up doing. But
Why didn't David kill Saul?
he respected him, and he respected Israel. That's what I believe. I don't. That's how much he loved the.
David said, "You don't touch God's anointed."
Don't touch God's anointed. Yeah.
God still anointed Saul.
Yeah. And as of even David, I wonder if when Samuel anointed David when he was young, if he realized what he had in store for him. And I think it wasn't his time yet. And he was going to do everything he could, I think, maybe to look like, I didn't think he wanted to look like the other people. I'm going to overtake Saul. I'm going to be your king. He was doing everything he could. He respected and honored the fact that he was anointed by Samuel to be the leader. And until he was going to do everything he could in his power, he even showed that, because you read a couple chapters ahead of here, he would go into the cave where Saul was at, cut off a piece of his garment, and he had it in his hand the next day and said, look, I could have killed you. But he's saying, I respect you. I honored you as my leader. And I thought about that. There are so many times, like we were saying at work or even in church situations, not all the time does everything go how we think it should go. But we still need to respect our leadership, and that they're whatever part of it, we may look at different ministries and not agree with everything they do, but still respect, hey, you got to be careful how you handle things like that way and not tear down that person or their ministry. Sometimes you're better off just to leave them alone instead of go pick a fight and try to tear them down. You got to watch that, Brother Bruce. Mom has always talked about that growing up. You see the televangelist, these preachers on TV, and some of them, you kind of look and you say, okay, they're doing this for the money, or you may not be sure, or you see different things, but we were, as kids, you hear people make fun of them. We were not allowed to do that. We would get, Mom would make sure, we'd get in trouble for that. Because you don't know. You don't know. And another thing, too, is when you start doing that, you might tear someone else down who has confidence in that person. And so you just got to get, sometimes you're better off, okay, I'm just going to walk away from that situation and let him do. And I think that's what David was doing. He did not want to be the one to go and say, hey, look what Saul's doing. He's wrong. He's doing this. He's doing that. He's going to let Saul and let God do it in his time. But David was proven to Saul that, hey, I could take your life, but I'm not. I care for you. I respect you.
When I was chairman of the board for 2 or 3 years, I had those come up with where I had to take some words with different people that was in leadership and stuff.
Yeah.
And that I was so afraid I would do it wrong.
Yeah.
Because I figured they were God's anointed, and if I messed with them in an unchristian-like way, it'd come back over me.
That's a good example. A very good example. And that's, because you see a lot of things when people are human. We're all human. Preachers, deacons, even Brother Gary's human. And we all make mistakes.
He's not perfect.
No, none of us are. He's pretty close.
And I'm not perfect.
He's pretty close. But anyway, you got to be careful. You can get within yourself and like Brother Rodney said there, how you handle those things. You could, if you bring down a man of God or hurt his reputation, and you got to be very careful how you handle things like that. And I believe exactly what David was doing. He was waiting on God's time. Go ahead, Chad. I can tell you got something on your mind.
He didn't care about anything else. He was chosen by people, not
Yeah.
by God. God allowed him to be anointed, and he gave Samuel the authority to anoint him because that's who the people chose.
Yeah.
And so
Wasn't
Saul turned into a dictator real quick.
Yeah.
Because Saul cared about Saul, right?
Right.
And a lot of times you have that in churches. You got pastors that they care about themselves. They don't want to grow a church. They don't want to minister to people. They don't want to serve people. They want the people to serve them. And I've teased about it myself. I said it here a few weeks ago, and I still do it because you mean well by it, but this isn't Cecil Farmer's church. That's not Matt Engel's church. That's not Steve Kahn's church, or you know what I'm saying? And we all do it. You know, for years I grew up my whole life thinking that Victory Chapel was Bobby Webb's church, you know, because that's just what you get accustomed to. And we mean well by it. There's no, you know, bad intentions. We're not putting them on a pedestal. But I think we need to be careful because we get so fixated on who's in charge, who's the pastor. David found the favor of God because I think in a pasture, all alone when no one else is around, he put his trust in God to slow a lion and a bear.
Yeah. And no matter what position he was
No
in.
matter what. And I've thought about this before. When it came time to destroy Goliath, it came time to fight Goliath. Saul's sitting under his throne, his knees knocking. His own son Jonathan's frustrated because nothing's happening.
Yeah.
Because Saul realized, I can't beat this guy, right? That's what's going on here. David comes on and says, you know, what are we doing here? David has already been playing his heart for Saul. It's already been taking place for a while now. Saul didn't recognize him. Saul goes, whose son is this? Well, wait a minute. He's been playing the harp for you for how long now?
Yeah.
Too many times we don't realize the help we need around us.
Yeah.
We don't need, it takes a youth leader, a song leader, a piano player, Sunday school teachers. You know what I mean? It's more than just one individual. And churches rise and fall because it gets based on one individual. And that's and then forget pastoring, forget church leadership, go in your own home. We rise and fall because we base things on ourselves, don't we?
Yeah.
We think we can do it. We think we can fix it. We think we can dictate it. That's the contrast between David and Saul.
They got so used to winning all these battles with Saul and Israel pulling through these battles, they got thinking it was them. So then when they seen this giant, they started seeing, they forgot how they were winning these battles, that these battles were being won because of God. And because God was with them. That's why they were winning these battles. And that's why David was saying, hey, we're serving the one and living, the God, that's why. And he said, we can take this man. Who does he think he is to curse our God? And David looked at things different. But I want to show you how far Saul got here. This is where this chapter goes, and how far jealousy and envy and all this stuff goes. And David, I think God will let him, he'll take care of things at his time. And that's what's happening here. It says, and everyone, I'm going to go ahead and verse 3 says, and David went thence to Mizpeh and of Moab, and he said unto the king of Moab, let my father and my mother, and I pray thee, come forth and be with you, so I know what God will do for me. So he's protecting his family. He brought them before the king of Moab, and they dwelt with him all the while David was in the hold. And the prophet Gad said unto David, abide not in the hold, depart and get thee into the land of Judah. Then David departed and came into the forest of Herod. And so the whole time God's hand was with David, protecting him. When Saul heard that David was discovered, and the men that were with him, now Saul abode in Gibeah under a tree in Ramah, having his spear in his hand, and all his servants were standing about him. He's already tried to kill David several times here, at least twice that I remember. Then Saul said unto his servants that stood about him, hear now, ye Benjamites, will the son of Jesse give every one of you fields and vineyards, and make you all captain of thousands and captain of hundreds? Saul, for a reason here, he's trying to get these soldiers to fight for him. He said, is David going to give you all this land? So there must have been something there where these soldiers were hesitant about going after David. But he's starting to try to win them over. He's saying, here, hey, is he going to give you any land? He said, he's just from Jesse. They don't have any land to give, or they don't have nothing. He was just a shepherd boy. he has nothing to give you. And he's trying to win him over and say, hey, I'll give you this land, you fight for me. Then Saul said unto, it said that, I'll go ahead and read that again. Then Saul said unto the servants that stood about him, hear now, you Benjamites, will the son of Jesse give every one of you fields and vineyards, and make you all captains of thousands, and captains of hundreds, that all of you have conspired against me, and there is none that showeth me that my son hath made a league with the son of Jesse, and there is none of you that is sorry for me, and showeth unto me that my son stirred up my servants against me to lie and wait at this day. And so he basically, all these people, he knows that they know where David's at. He said, don't you guys feel sorry for me, what I'm going through? Here goes the pity party. Instead of saying, you got yourself into this mess. Saul got himself into this mess. And he's saying there, don't you feel sorry for my own son's turned against me? And then he goes on, and then listen to this. And then answered Doeg, the Edomite, which was set over the servants of Saul, and said, I saw the son of Jesse come into Nob, the Amalek, the son of Ahitub. I don't know how to pronounce that. Here you got Doeg, the Edomite. Who's the Edomites? He's dealing with someone who really wasn't even part of Israel. Who's the Edomites? Who did they come from? Esau. So you got someone here that these guys weren't even really not of God of who they were. They were worshiping idols and everything. When they went with Esau, they went off on their own path. So you got some Esau descendants here stepping up and turning against him. David had went and talked to the priest. The next chapter here, I should have gotten hit some of that. He went, he needed help, he needed food, and he went to this priest. And that's where he was at. And so Doeg was there, and he seen him. He seen him there. So now he's telling, hey, I seen him over there at that priest. So this is where it gets bad. Then the king sent to call for Ahimelech the priest, the son of Ahitub, and all his father's house, and the priests that were in Nob. And they came all to them to the king. And Saul said, hear now, thou son of Ahitub. And he answered, here I am, my lord. And Saul said unto him, why have you conspired against me, thou and the son of Jesse, and that thou hast given him bread and a sword, and hast inquired of God of him, that he should rise against me to lie and wait as at this day? What sword did he give him? We read that earlier. What sword did the priest give him? Goliath. Ain't that something? He took that, David, after that battle, he didn't know he's going to need that sword later on. I don't think that was just for coincidence. He had that waiting. That priest had it there. Said David went to his house and he said, hey, I don't have any sword or anything. Saul's after me. And he said, here, I got the sword of Goliath. And he said, is there any better? And he thought, boy, God had it waiting there for him. So then, said in verse 14, then Ahimelech answered the king and said, and who is so faithful among all the servants as David, which is the king's son-in-law, and goeth at thy abiding and is honorable in thy house? He's like, why are you after him for? He's your son-in-law. Did I then begin to inquire of God for him? Be it far from me, let not the king impute anything unto his servant, nor to all the house of my father, for thy servant knew nothing of all this, less or more. And the king said, thou shalt surely die, Ahimelech, thou and all thy father's house. And the king said unto the footmen that stood about him, turn and slay the priests of the Lord, because their hand also is with David, and because they knew when he fled, and he did not shew it to me. But the servants of the king would not put forth their hand to fall upon the priests of the Lord. Well, there's our lesson right there. These men that was supposed to be for Saul, when he told him to kill the priest of the Lord. That's the difference. This is the priest of the Lord. They wouldn't do it. That's how we should be as Christians. When we know something's wrong, no matter what. They could have lost all their lives. Saul could say, okay, you can die too. But they said, we're not going to touch the man of God. We just was talking about that. We're not going to touch this man, these priests. But listen what happens here. The same one who sold out David. And And the king said, Doeg, turn thou and fall upon the priest. And Doeg, the Edomite, turned, and he fell upon the priest, and slew on that day 85 persons, and did wear a linen ephod. 85 priests killed, or of the family of the priests killed. And Nob, the city of the priests, smote he with the edge of the sword, both men and women, children, sucklings, and oxen, and asses, and sheep with the edge of the sword. And one of the sons of Ahimelech, the son of Ahitub, named Abiathar, escaped and fled after David. And Abiathar showed David that Saul had slain the Lord's priest. And David said unto Abiathar, I knew it that day when Doeg the Edomite was there, that he would surely tell Saul, I have occasioned the death of all the persons of thy father's house. Abide thou with me, fear not, for he that seeketh my life seeketh thy life. But with me thou shalt be in safeguard. So I thought about that's where we're in our lesson. I like to go on, but I want to get into what's coming up. But this is where jealousy and hatred will get you. He attacked God's men. He got so bitter and angry that, and the jealousy that you imagine how far you would have to go to do how evil that is to the priest that Saul didn't care. And he had them all, 85 of the priest family he had slaughtered. But I thought about this. It sounds terrible, the ending of this lesson. But God still had his hand with David.
Yes, amen.
He still spared the priest.
Yes.
And I thought about that. He still had a way. And David, he ran to David. He knew where to go. That priest knew where to go. He says, I'll protect you. He still had a way. Go ahead, Brother Rodney.
Well, at the end of the story, David killed all of Saul's family because he had to be done away with it when David could become priest and king of Israel.
But there was a time.
Yeah.
There was a time when
Time
God.
and place for everything.
Yep.
It's just like when Jesus came, he gave us the way we were supposed to handle any disputes in the Christian church.
Yeah.
You do it one-on-one, and you take a buddy and go back, and then you bring him before the church. So it's not only on you, it can be dispersed throughout the church.
You had to do it in God's time. And even David proved later on that he got out of God's will.
Yeah.
And then he just proved that he was a man. That's what he proved. He was a man.
He
But
committed murder.
anytime that Israel did it God's way, they never failed. And that's the same with us.
And
We do the same thing.
If he can do it, what chances we have?
Right. Exactly. What was I give Chad, the question was earlier, is there a righteous jealousy? I had Chad read this. This is 2 Corinthians 11:2.
For I am jealous over you with a godly jealousy. For I have espoused you to one husband, that I may present you as a chaste virgin to Christ.
So there's a godly jealousy, isn't there?
Yes.
And there's a reason God, we're part of God's brides. And that's what he's talking about here. The church is the bride of Christ. And when he sees us not doing what we should be, trying to be part of the world, it makes him jealous. There is a godly jealousy there for a right reason, but there's also, I give Brother Gary this one, James 3:16.
For where envy and strife is, there is confusion in every evil work.
So if it's of the flesh, of our jealousy, we're jealous of our brother and our sister in Christ, that goes on a lot, and it's easy to get. If God has given each one of us different gifts, different positions, and some of it, he's given a lot of people the ability of different gifts, and they choose not to use it. So there's different reasons there. There was one, remember the talents that were handed out.
Yeah.
The one took his talents and multiplied them.
Yes.
And the one did nothing with it. He went and buried it. Didn't do anything with it.
Right.
So there's people that God has given different talents, and we just chose not to do anything with them.
Yeah.
And then they're usually the ones that get jealous of the ones who took their talents and used them.
Right.
But there's a selfish and a fleshly jealousy that we can have towards our brothers and sisters in Christ. That's just, it's wrong. It's witchcraft, is what the Bible says. It's just bad. And it causes envy and strife, as that verse says. But there's the jealousy that God has for his people. There's a godly, and people talk about that, and it's like, okay, Lansby preached on it here a while back. He said, I have Chelsea as my wife. And he said, she is espoused to me. And if someone tries to intrude on that, there's a godly jealousy there because God joined that. It's of God. So there's a difference of that type of people say, okay, God is jealous when you bring that up, and they say there's two different, it means two different things. There's a selfish and a fleshly jealousy there that's just, it's bad. It's envy. It's of the devil. But there's also a godly that's righteous. Does that make sense? That makes it, yeah. And that's what you have. It's like when you're a spouse to your spouse. They're yours. They belong to you. And when we're espoused to God, we belong to him. Amen. And when we go and do other things, that's what he said. He said there's a godly jealousy there. I read that. I've heard many people ask that question about, when we talk about jealousy, and they go, well, God was jealous. And it's like, well, it's two different things there. Yes. Anybody have anything you want to add?
But when you get married, you became one flesh.
You do.
So that you are just one.
You're just one.
So with that jealousy, you're jealous within yourself.
Yeah. And that's why we're with God. It's one.
Yeah. And if you get the right woman and she gets the right man, it's awesome.
Yeah. Sure is. Okay. Any more? Anybody want to add? Brother Tom, you want to dismiss us?